Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Gaming with Blockchain. I'm your host, AMineU, and today, as I mentioned, we're going to be going through different content, trying to catch up to a lot of the information that's been going on in the week, and it has been a busy week, as usual. Nothing to complain about, but it's a challenge to keep up with all the news and what's going on. But so we're starting off with Upland. They had several things happen this week. But first, let's look at their NFT platform, or I should say their NFT collection. We're looking right now at the Upland Cards, and they've now set it up in the tools section of Atomic Hub, where you can look at your categories and find out what you have and what you don't have in stock. If you're looking for a particular set to finish and complete, you can now do so in Atomic Hub and go through the tools category. I'll put this in the show notes if you've collected any of these, or you're looking at collecting any of these cards. This is what you want to see, and you will want to be able to go, okay, well, what am I missing? What do I need? Now, what you're looking at right now is more the directors or the original players set. These are players who are more or less were part of the game from the beginning, and they've had their own personalized set that was pre-selected. So this is what you're looking at right now. But if I go through a different collection, I should say more of the uncommons. No, not the uncommons. I should say um, the is it the collection set. Here we go. You could look at other categories of the NFTs themselves. If I'm looking at what's missing in the collection set, what's gray is the ones that I need. I can highlight, I can hover over them, and it'll give me a bit more information, and it'll convert to color. But once they're in, once I'm off the selection point, I can tell which ones I have, which are the ones that are not are in color versus the ones that are not. So I have out of the um, Brooklyner collection, I have one, and if I want to get the rest of them, I need to collect the additional four. I have nothing in Bushwick stamps. This is the stamp category, so there's certain things I do have. Most of them I don't. And part of it too is because, as I mentioned, I haven't opened up my packs because I'm not that great at doing that. But for the few that I have, this is what you could look at, and you can see overall what I will need to do to complete this whole package. And remember, each card, like right now, this is not an animated series versus this one being an animated one. So the rarity, as you can see, it's I will click on it for more info, and it's always based on the rarity. And this is a legendary, fully animated, excuse me, style of card. Versus the one that I have, which is more static, and we just lost the page. But we'll get back to that at another time. Let's go back here. So this is the version I have right now, and this is probably likely just a common or uncommon, I should say. Um, and then you can see those attributes. You can look at it and go, okay, what would I need to do if I wanted to add to that? So that's what's going on in the Upland cards. Their particular cards that was mentioned before. And like I said, it's all for a lot of people saying, well, this is a kind of odd looking or whatever. They're creating their own style that's distinctive from other competitors. You want to distinguish yourself, and this is one way to do it. It catches you right away. You go, okay, this is different. You're not. Some may like it, some may not, but you can't argue that it's completely different from the norm. So that's what's going on there in Upland card collection, and as people trade them or sell them, you can see that in the marketplace. So now let's go and see what's going on in the DApp radar market where Upland's concerned. And as I said, I look at a DApp. You rarely see me do much on terms of price. Um, I don't want to get into that because there's always these expectations, and that's not what this is all about. This is more about the gameplay and the NFT market of itself. So, where's the Upland stand as of right now in terms of performance? They fell a bit, and we'll explain why that has happened. There's some things, dynamics that had happened in the last couple of hours, and we'll touch base on that in a moment. But you can see where things are going, what's happening in the gameplay, what's the interest overall. Um, there's still maintenance in the interest of itself, and generally there is, and there's reasons why. So let's go to the game itself. Right now, I'm hovering over Manhattan and Brooklyn, because I was explaining to another player the key elements of how to travel between cities, and this seems to be a continuous issue for a lot of players. Traveling between cities is not as logical as you may think it to be, so it's something you have to pay attention to. They've altered the logical parts of the mechanics, for the purpose of assuring that there's more flow throughout the city. Instead of going from Brooklyn directly from the train stations that you see, from this train station directly to the airport here, that hasn't happened yet. That may happen in the future, but it's not right now. What you need to do in the game is you have to travel, if you're in Brooklyn, travel from Brooklyn back to Manhattan, then from Manhattan to your airport, or I should say to the airport. So it's a little cumbersome, but you have to, if you're Brooklyn, you have to go from Brooklyn back to Manhattan, from Manhattan back to the airport. That's the only way to essentially get out of the New York area into California. You can't do the travel from Brooklyn to the airport. That's a no-no. You need to do the first step, which is Brooklyn to Manhattan to the airport. So now we're going to head to the opening city. They added a new city, with the same kind of protocol as it was for Brooklyn, where it was a 50-50. The first wave, offering, let's take a look at the notes here, um, offering a 50% of the release of the larger. Here's looking at the first wave, unlocking 50% of the properties that are less than 5,000 UPX, and 50% of the properties that are greater than 5,000 UPX. So that was the first wave. And they're doing that same thing as they did for Brooklyn again, trying to make sure that they can maintain a certain amount of activity and transactions on their systems, and while at the same time test out to make sure that things work well. Well, how did it go today? I didn't go on at launch, simply because couldn't do it, and but the feedback from the reports that I was reading on, quite glitchy, quite a bit of a lag, but in everyone's disappointment in how it proceeded. My argument has been is that it's still far better than Brooklyn. Brooklyn was a complete choke. This time they reacted a lot better once they realized things were getting a little too congested, which means that now, because they know they still have a little fine tuning to do, the release for the next wave, the second wave, will not be coming this coming Monday as stated here in this article, which was Monday. That won't happen now, not until the following week. Following week, if everything proceeds according to plan. But now you can see just in Oakland alone, how many properties are ready for sale, and how much has basically been dispersed and particularly removed off the grid for a lot of things. So now I want to put a note in to make sure that we can distinguish some things right now. They've added another color, and hopefully you can see it. There's a lighter gray, which is locked properties right now. That means they're not available. They won't be available anytime soon. Versus the slightly darker gray, which is a property that's for sale. and the properties that are reserved for the FSA players. So it helps now navigate the screen a little better instead of floating around and you're anticipating, as you know, if I go to my Explorer right now, which is definitely going in the wrong direction. Let me see if I can send them. I'll send them to my property, and hopefully you can see something change in color. Okay, so zoom out. So you can see here as properties change in color, what was happening before, everything was changing in a light green. So you know, myself and everyone else would anticipate, oh, okay, we can go and buy these properties, only to find out you click it and then it's not available. So right now, whatever's not available just doesn't show up, which is better enhancement, better game experience. Extremely important that it just makes it a lot smoother. So right now I know between the two, I have an option to buy this particular property if I wanted to. And that is just that simple. Or I want to buy this one, I know it right away. But we can take a look and we can see that the areas are becoming more and more congested, and this is less than 24 hours. This is not a 24-hour activity by any means. This is just within the last maybe 12 hours at most, and the numbers have really gone up quite a lot. Estimated have claimed maybe about 200,000, give or take, in activity thus far, for an Oakland city, which is pretty huge. If it will, I'll zoom out right now, and you'll look, and I'll put on the map. It's a pretty big city. You know, it can challenge San Francisco quite well in terms of the scope and availability. It's considered a mid-tier city, so it's not as pricey as San Francisco. It's in the ranges like Brooklyn, and I should say no, primarily just Brooklyn. But you can tell right now there's a lot of opportunities for new players or any seasoned players as well to go in and navigate and find areas that they like and make any purchases that may be of interest. So the game is expanding, and again, to travel, if you're in Fresno, right? I mean, this one's kind of obvious because there's no way to cross over the water. You have to travel back, and let's get to Fresno here. There we go, and Clovis. You have to travel from this train station to the train station in San Francisco, and then from San Francisco to Oakland, and vice versa. There's no direct travel from Fresno to Oakland. That may come in a later date, but right now you have to go back to the main city in order to get to the next city over. And these improvements may likely will change as the game evolves over time. So now, what is the challenge? The challenge is the game is growing pretty quickly. They had to bring in a new city, and basically a full city, like really big in terms of its asset class. But we still needed in-game mechanics. That's still lacking, and they're just been bombarded with so many other things on the technical side that the game hasn't had a chance to develop any much further. So we're hoping at this point where now there's enough of a baseline for new players to come in and scope around the new city, alleviate some of the strain on the development side in terms of trying to get the property development en route, the business licenses en route, the teleportation in terms of your assets. So I'll go back to the asset class here. This is my properties, but if I want to go to my block explorer, I still have these explorers in place. I haven't been able to bring in anything new. Again, like I said, from the Upland Cards, I haven't discovered any new explorer yet. But all these things you want to see come into fruition into the game, so the game is not as static as it seems it can be, and then it becomes more engaging for new players. So I'm still involved in it quite a bit. I've kind of changed the gameplay a bit, somewhat, only because of how the restrictions have been in how you can obtain property. It wasn't as quick on buy and sell as it used to. There's a little more constraints, and there's some constraints overall. But at the same time, then you have to think differently. You just have to kind of plan your strategies accordingly. So what would next city be? You can see some people are hinting at Queens. I'm not sure. I know they're supposed to be hinting. They wanted on the West Coast, and they're supposed to do another East Coast. I, I'm anticipating and hoping they would do something outside of these two regions, somewhere else in the U.S. if it has to be in North America. But again, at the same time, we'll have to kind of imagine what will happen there. So I hope this is giving you kind of an update of what's going on for Upland. It's chugging along, but they do need to get their stuff in gear, and fingers crossed that with the new support system they have with new hirees, it will help kind of alleviate some of the issues, but at the same time bring in some focus so the milestones that they're hoping to achieve are completed. So that's it. Hopefully you enjoy, and we'll have much more to share along with Upland as we move along. Take care.